Being a first-time home buyer is hard enough in today's market, but did you know that you have to learn an entire new confusing language of real estate terms and definitions just so you have a baseline understanding of what the hell everybody's talking about? Time to level up your vocab like you're studying for the SAT. Let's get wordy.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to qualified vetted realtors in their area. Whether you're looking for DIY information or step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is the #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
What's happening, my How to Buy a Homies? I'm your host and first-time homebuyer coach, David Sidoni. Now, real estate has its own language, its own terminology and jargon. So way back in 2022, one of the old episodes, episode number 94, I defined and explained in layman's terms the full list of first-time homebuyer vocabulary so that you wouldn't have to Google every other word that was said to you by your realtor, your lender, your title, or your escrow people. That has the full A to Z list over 20 episodes, and it's given millions of listeners out there all the confidence of an SAT prep class, or maybe more, since I didn't really get much out of those. And so the real estate market is constantly evolving. Currently, there are different words and phrases being thrown around by the lenders, the realtors, Zillow and TikTok and Instagram, YouTube, your parents, your coworkers, and that one friend who bought a home 2 years ago and suddenly became a real estate expert. Yeah, there's new things that people have suddenly started saying, and I want to make sure that you're getting all the right information and not just hearing weird stuff. So today I'm going to help define some new words and phrases that seem to be cruising around in real estate. These are some things that you might be hearing in 26 and probably going into 27. And I'm going to start with a positive term. This was one that, I've been saying for the last couple of years, and now I'm starting to hear more people say it. Opportunity window. Now that term, it's a crucial one for you to understand and embrace, because I realize you're hearing the exact opposite. And that's for a reason. Fear and drama, that gets the clicks. Right now, you're being inundated with doom and gloom reporting. And don't ever forget these two things. Number one, fear sells because it's great clickbait. And number two, your best financial and personal life decisions get better results when the public is afraid. Crowd followers, they end up in the majority getting just average results. But people who can go past the fear, the innovators and the early adopters, armed with the correct data, they get the most extraordinary results. And I've got data behind this. Here's what's up. Most of you probably aren't as big a real estate nerd as I am. And I definitely know that for most of you, maybe you've been tracking the real estate market, a couple of years now at most? But here's what home sellers have been doing. They've been watching the housing market for years, starting way back when they bought their home, and then all the subsequent years monitoring their home's value. That could be 5, 10, 15 years. And right now in 2026, they are freaking confused by the housing market data they've been following. Post-COVID, they watched their homes increase in value by 35, 45%. And then 2021 came along and they refinanced down to a crazy 3% interest rate. Then they sat around and suddenly 2 years later in 2023, they saw a ginormous change. Interest rates shot to 8%. Home prices slowed down. No more major increases. And in some areas, home prices actually dipped for the first time in over a decade. So what happened was we saw a confused, stalled, and kind of frozen housing market from 2023 to today. And sellers have been watching that. And what's interesting is they've been watching and stuck. And thanks to this new vocabulary term, the frozen market is starting to thaw. That term is the lock-in effect. The lock-in effect is those millions of homeowners who bought or refinanced into that 3% interest rate back in 2021. They were super stoked with the new rate and the low down payment, and then they watched their home value shoot up, and many of them wanted to ride that appreciation wave. They wanted to keep making money, so they picked a date, in 24 or 25 when they would sell their house, cash out big. And then the end of 2023 hit. Bam! Interest rates hit 8%. And homeowners who wanted to move suddenly decided to lock in. And no, I don't mean they decided to get serious and focus intensely. It's not that lock in. I mean, people are calling it locked in sellers. They're locked in on their interest rate. They locked the door and they said, I ain't selling this home if my new home is going to have a 7 or 8% interest rate. So from 2000 to 2020, the average homeowner, they moved every 8 or 9 years. But in the last 5 years, that number has increased to every 12 years. People have wanted to move, but they're not. And they got to move because life happens. They either want to get their forever home or they need more space, more kids, and more pets. Who knows what's growing in their family? Or they want to go to a better neighborhood. All of those things. And today, they've been waiting for 3 years now. They were planning on doing it back in 23 and 24. And then, boom, rates went crazy. The market stalled and everybody freaked out. And today, interest rates are at 6%. So that lock-in effect, it's finally starting to loosen with millions of homeowners who are rerunning their numbers now because they're sick of waiting and their need to sell their home so they can get on with their lives. So for you, that means we're finally seeing more inventory come back on the market. Okay, our next term. This is another trend we've seen post-COVID. It's something that we're seeing in buyers called the migration affordability market. What's happening with the data is we are seeing population growth happening outside the cities, partially because of the influx, because people are moving there because remote working is happening, and more recently, because some buyers are finding more affordability out there. Yeah, you're going to get bigger home, you're going to get more space, and you're going to get more bang for your buck, better prices and better monthly payments. But be careful though. New home builders and home flippers, the investor folks, yeah, they know that buyers are looking out there too. And there's a new term that you should know called neighborhood blindness. That's because the new home builders and the flippers, they're giving you all the gorgeous flooring and countertops and the closet space. But you know what? Have you checked that location? Don't ignore location. I promise you this, 20 years from now, nobody's going to care about your backslash. But the location, the school districts, the commute times, the community amenities, and the community developments, those things, they're going to matter from day one living in your home. But that could be totally up to you. Every buyer is different. The decision on location, that's 100% a you thing. I sure as hell can't, and I will never tell prospective first-time homebuyers things like this. Okay, well, I've analyzed all the data, and in this housing market, the smartest first-time homebuyers, they're buying outside the city so that they can get a home with the most value. No, I can't say that. I don't know anything about you. I don't know what's actually valuable to you. You shouldn't pick a location or a home style because it's the most valuable, or you've only done a little bit of work and you think this might be your only affordable option. Instead, research and discover all your options and then compare everything to each other so you can make the best decision for you. The most successful first-time homebuyer stories that I hear all the time are the people who run the numbers and compare all their options way before they even start to look at homes, before they ever step foot inside a place. They get educated first and they build a plan that creates as many affordable options as possible for them. This is a step that many buyers miss. And that means you're sitting in a cart miles ahead of the horse. That's way behind you. And you're sitting there wondering, why am I stuck in the mud? Why can't I get anywhere? The successful buyers, they're thriving through this new term, parallel planning. In the 1900s, people would just go to work, start a savings account for a home, and buy a home. Today, that outdated blueprint, that's going to keep you renting for, 10, 20 years. So the new thing, which we've been talking about here on the podcast for a long time, it's parallel planning. You're going to be working on multiple aspects of your financial situation simultaneously. Once again, multiple aspects at the same time. Because what you're doing is you're preparing to buy a home someday, and you don't do the steps. You don't start with one, finish that, and then start with another, and then start and finish, and then start another one. That'll just take way too long. I don't care if you're 3 years from buying a home. If you start parallel planning today, you're going to shave years off your home buying schedule, thus saving you years in lost, non-wealth building rent. And it doesn't matter. I don't care if you're 3 weeks or 3 years from buying a home. If you start your parallel planning today, you're going to shave time off your home buying schedule, years off your home buying schedule for your few years out. And that's going to save you those years because they're going to be non-wealth building rent years that you can turn into home ownership years. So what you want to do is you want to improve your credit score while you're building up your savings account, while you're reducing your debt, while you're working on your debt to income ratio, while you're researching and learning. And most importantly, you're simultaneously parallel planning, beefing up all those finances while you're also getting advice and professional guidance from a kick-ass unicorn first-time homebuyer specialized planning team. You get to do multiple things at the same time. Do not do one thing first before you address another. I repeat, because I didn't say it well earlier. I do not want you to address one thing at a time. This will slow you down, and it doesn't take much to figure out how to do parallel planning. If you just try to do it the 1900s way, that's a recipe for renting way longer than you have to. Parallel planning, that should be a required class for all first-time home buyers. And our next term and definition, this is another thing that really delays hopeful first-time home buyers. Doom scroll economics. People intentionally, the people who are posting stuff, they're on purpose putting out their polarizing real estate content because they want to get the big hits in the algorithm. Doesn't matter if they're talking good or bad about the post. More people that talk, the more reach that it gets. And every day, some unhinged wannabe influencer is posting clickbait. They're doing that for views, and most of it is total BS. You want to win? Okay, here's my hot take. The real estate game is rigged. You can't change it, but you don't have to give up. You can beat it if you know how it works. Math over emotions. Education over outrage. Hot take. But I'm still not going to get any views. Which leads us to another term, rate obsession. Now, I touched on this new term in episode 492, but here's a quick reminder. Rate obsession is thinking that you're going to get the best deal by watching mortgage rates. And doing that is like thinking that stalking someone is the best way that you're going to find a soulmate. Bro, obsession, it's not a good look on anybody. Yeah, I get it. Interest rates matter. You know what else does? Your credit score, your lender, your plan, and building a strategy that finds affordability in the hundreds of other factors besides just your interest rate. All that matters a million times more than getting an eighth or a quarter of a point lower. And I got news for you. It's not going to do much more than that for at least the next 6 to 8 months, maybe longer. That's what all the economists are saying. It's going to be a little volatile. It's going to be, jumping up and down. It doesn't make any sense why and when it does it, but no one's anticipating a big drop. That already happened. Over the last 3 years, we went from 8% to 6%, and most of the leading economists and financial people who study this crap way more than everybody else, they say rates are going to be stuck on 6% for a good chunk of time. The next term, this is one I'm starting to see a little bit more these days, but I've actually been seeing it for years. But now in 2026, it's starting to come to light a little bit more. Yeah, your approval shock. Somebody spends 3 years convincing themselves they can't buy a home. And then when they finally talk to a first-time home buyer, specialized lender, a true advisor that could show them all their options, shocker, the renters find out they could have bought a home 2 or 3 years ago. And the cure for the approval shock, it's not more Zillow dream scrolling. The cure is talking to an actual lender, a person. Not AI, not a mortgage calculator that doesn't have all your information. And for God's sakes, not an online lender. Talk to a unicorn level financial strategist, a counselor, someone who can show you all of your options. You don't know what you don't know without talking to a pro. And one of the number one things that you'll hear over the 120 interviews that are in the episode guide, which we'll put in the show notes for you, real people after going through it, they say, man, my best advice, know your numbers. Even if you think you don't want to, or even if you think that you can't do this for a couple of years, most people are shocked, not disappointed. Which brings us to our next new term. Thanks to AI and Google, we're seeing a lot more people out there who are doing this. We call it DIY loan qualification. DIY loan qualification is guessing your buying power by punching in numbers on a calculator or doing a little research or asking ChatGPT and not talking to a lender. That is the home buying equivalent of medically diagnosing yourself from WebMD and not talking to a doctor. A good lender can give you more clarity in 30 minutes than you can do with 6 months of research on the internet. Okay, speaking of research, let's talk about this next term. Spreadsheet analysis paralysis, also known as getting stuck in the research loop. This is where I actually see many very smart people get stuck. And I know that this might be lots of you out there. I mean, you're listening to me. You got to be smart, right? Okay, anyway. I mean, look, but you are here and you're tolerating my cringy dad jokes vibe. in your ear holes for a long time. You are a dedicated researcher and a planner, and I applaud you for being responsible and analytical. That's awesome. You want to get all the data before you move forward. Okay, here's some data, and it's 7 years worth. Thousands of buyers. This is a big data pool. 72% of the people that reach out to How to Buy a Home, and they think they are 12 to 18 months from being able to buy a home, are under contract in 3.2 months. Yeah, I see you out there. You're ready. And you know what? This is nothing new to me. I've been here 24/7, 365 for first-time home buyers, 20 years, since 2006. And the one thing I've seen over and over and over and over and over again is that the smartest buyers, the most capable buyers, they seem to be the ones that don't think they're ready yet. And it's not their fault, because the real estate industry has ignored first-time home buyers. They absolutely suck at educating and helping you guys figure out what you can do and when you should get started. So you've been incorrectly talked to, trained, and when you research, most of what you find out there is wrong. 90% of the licensed so-called professionals can't help you. And then of the 10% that can help you, 9% don't want to help you because they think working with first-time home buyers is beneath their skill set. So when you do research, you have a 99% chance of knowing more than the licensed professional that you talk to. And you hear that from your friends. So you know what you do? You go hard on your research loop. One spreadsheet becomes 10. 5 podcasts becomes 250. Meanwhile, you're paying rent the entire time and prices aren't dropping and rates are still stuck at 6%. Before you know it, you spent 3 years researching something that should have taken you 90 minutes to understand. Analysis is good, but paralysis, that's expensive. FYI, if you want that 90-minute solution, it's explained in episode 441. That's the Last Lease Ever program, a clear 12-month plan for most renters to become homeowners. 72% of them, like I said, in 3.2 months. I got the data. All right, the next term is a relatively new one to real estate, but it's an insanely valuable tool for first-time homebuyers. Oh my God, I can hear my wife making fun of me right now. Really, David? Insanely? Sorry, guys. I'm so excited about this. Rent reporting. Yes. Right now, paying rent finally can get credited for your credit score. Rent reporting allows your rental payment history to be added to your credit profile. It's new. It's a gigantic boost to your credit score. It's so exciting. It'll make you say words in a weird way. So do it right now, like yesterday. The next myth that I've been busting for 7 years here on the podcast, it's a phrase. Student loan debt kills buying ability. No, it does not. Stop it. Not always. And in fact, not usually. This is a negative myth, and I hate it. We want to make sure that you get as much information as you can, and you don't know what you don't know. And what I do know is that we have helped on this show doctors, people with PhDs, people who went to school and then decided to do some extra schooling, or they went back to school, people with $200,000, $300,000 in student loan debts, and they qualified for affordable housing and found an affordable rent replacement strategy so they could finally take control of their lives and stop feeling like their student loans were this giant, scary shadow lurking behind them, holding them back from the futures that they worked so hard for. Okay, there are a ton of other important terms and definitions so that you can go into the entire home buying process with a little bit of confidence. And those start at episode 94. But what I've done is I've handpicked a few here because these particular terms, they've gotten a specific 26 or 27 twist. Old terms, new things happening right now. I've talked a lot about open houses and how they work in past episodes. And right now, in 2026, there are a bunch of desperate real estate agents. In 2025, 71.1 or 0.4, 71-ish% did not sell one home. So you know what you're going to see at open house? Get ready for open house vulture agents. Yeah, that's a term that's been going around the industry for years. The dirty little secret of real estate is that open houses, they are not to sell the home. I know it's what everyone thinks, but that's not what they're there for. And it doesn't necessarily benefit the seller, actually, even though most of them, the sellers, say, oh, we have to have open houses. And the agent's like, great. Well, you know why? Because open houses are marketing techniques for the realtors. It's a client capture machine for realtors. And most of the time, they're being held by newer agents. Every once in a while, it'll be a listing agent, but most of the time, it's a rookie just trying to get anybody to work with them. This is why if a big agent in town has 5 or 10 homes for sale, they don't have time to do them all. So a brand new agent will hold them open. And when you walk in, you're fresh meat for desperate wannabe realtors praying that you're going to be a sale for them so they don't have to go back to their real job. And if you do happen to go in the one where the listing agent is holding the open house themselves, the only reason that they're doing that is because they're trying to get other neighbors to sell their homes. The looky-loos who come in, they want listings. And if they want to impress those people, that means they have to sell the home that you're standing in right now for the maximum price so that all the neighbors will hire them. It's something in the real estate industry that we call farming. They plant seeds in a neighborhood to say, we sell for the highest. Yeah, don't think you're going to get a great deal on that if that person represents you. And one thing I say about open houses all the time is, can I answer a few questions for you? Yeah, of course. But what are the odds that your perfect representative, your greatest advocate for your home buying planning is the person that you randomly meet when you walk into a home? Protect yourself. Interview, hire the best agent, not just the one that you bumped into. Okay, the next term that people are starting to analyze a lot more in 2026, it's days on market. A lot of times you'll see it abbreviated as DOM. Days on market tells you how many days a home has been actively listed, but days on market, that's one of the first clues about the leverage, because right now we're starting to see homes sit a little bit longer. Longer it sits, the more likely the seller's getting nervous. And that means it could be what we call a stale listing. Now, here's your warning. Not all stale listings are a deal waiting to be pounced on. Sometimes there's a reason, and it's a good one. So what you need to do is hire a badass realtor to help you interpret the signs when you find a home that's got longer days on market. When you're talking to your team, one of the great things they're going to do is help you in the area of your mind. Because one thing we're seeing a lot of right now is market brain freeze. That's the assumption that uncertainty means inaction is your best play. If interest rates go up, freeze. If interest rates go down, freeze. If there's an election year, freeze. If economic uncertainty is happening, freeze. Housing headlines, freeze. Everything becomes a reason to wait. And that's a big problem because the housing market, it always has uncertainty. Always, every single time. There's never been a magical period where every economist agreed or where every headline was positive or every rate was perfect, and especially not where every buyer felt completely confident. That world doesn't exist. Market brain freeze convinces people that action requires certainty. But successful home buyers understand something different. Action requires a plan. You build the confidence, and then everything is just the next natural stage in a progression. But that market brain freeze, that created another term, something I call time machine regret. Time machine regret is one of the saddest things I see in this business. It's what happens when someone looks backward instead of looking forward. They tell me, David, if I knew then what I know now, I could have stopped renting years ago. Every single homeowner wishes they could have bought earlier, every single one. And that's not because they're smarter than renters. It's because once you start building equity, appreciation, and stability and tax benefits, well, man, the benefits of owning become obvious. So while everyone else is frozen in fear, here is some great news for you about today. For years now, sellers have been in control. But things are changing. We're finding out the sellers are starting to give credits. They're starting to give concessions. They're starting to bend a little bit on repairs after the inspections. They're negotiating a lot more. In the old days, it was like, nope, bid it up, gang. Top dollar. That's what I'm looking for, and you don't get anything from me. Today, you can negotiate. And the more you prepare, the more you're going to get out of that negotiation when it's finally time for you to start putting offers on homes. And eventually, you are going to find a home that you love. And that's when there's going to be a whole book of new terms and definitions dropped on you. It's the negotiation language book. And if you don't understand negotiation language, things can get expensive very quickly. You're going to need to know all about earnest money deposits, net offer formulas, escalation clauses, appraisals and appraisal gaps, seller credits. You have to know about disclosures and the contingency, condition, option, or due diligence period and the timelines and how those work, performance deadlines. You have to know about defaults and breaches of contract. You have to know about secondary negotiations, mortgage interest rate buydowns, highest and best offers, reconsideration of value, rent backs, also known as lease backs, requests for repairs, taking title, funding, recording, and taking possession dates. Now, did I totally freak you out? Do I have your attention now? Good. I know, that felt like a real dick move. But I would never use scare tactics with you. I did that for a very specific reason, to help you. Now, I've already gone over all the things I just mentioned in past episodes, so you can get familiar with them. Episode 356, 410, 412, 438, 450, 462, 486, and a few others. I'll put this in the show notes for you. But the only reason that I shouted out that freaky laundry list of negotiation language was to illustrate this very important point. Most first-time home buyers, and unfortunately, lots of the realtors that those first-time home buyers actually hire, most of the people involved in the deal, they think that the best price, that's your best shot to win the home that you're in love with. When in reality, price is just one of the tools in your tool belt for helping you get the deal. All that stuff I just talked about, that all has to do with the terms of your deal. The terms structured in your contract can save you tens of thousands of dollars and even help your deal be more attractive to the seller, even if you're a lower price than another offer. That's why I told you that. And here's another tip. If you're sitting there jonesing to immediately listen to all those episodes because you're like, oh my God, all those tips and negotiation tactics, I want to learn all that. Hey, if you go do that first, you're doing it backwards. Too many first-time home buyers try to learn all the negotiation tips and they're not even ready with their planning to buy a home. They haven't started parallel planning on their finances. Learning how to go to battle is pointless if you haven't stockpiled all your weapons. Yeah, maybe for you an escalation clause could be the rocket launcher that blows the competition away. But you have to be able to afford it before you learn how to fire it. I could spend all my time here putting out 7 podcasts a week, defining every potential real estate situation that you could encounter in the process. But that would be a huge waste of your time. And you'd be renting way too long, trying to learn everything before you do anything. Meanwhile, 72% of you could actually be getting the keys to your home in 3.2 months. Now, if you're a longtime listener, you know that it seems like every episode, I do mention the rent replacement strategy and the last lease ever program. But here's a little something behind that. Do you know why that is? It's because they took 20 years to make. You want to know how to buy a home? That's it. It's 20 years of my research, episodes 440 and 441, rent replacement strategy and last lease ever. After that, you can go crazy learning all the tools, tips, and tactics that I put in all the other episodes. But if you spend all your time trying to figure out every detail on how to do this, you're doing it backwards. You're going to lose time and you're going to lose options. So check those out. And then when you want your guides, go to howtobuyahome.com, see if you've got a local unicorn realtor in your area that you can consult with, first-time homebuyer specialist who actually knows how to guide first-time homebuyers through the process, help you with the parallel planning, people who understand the financing, the negotiation, the strategy, the education, the planning, the market conditions, and most importantly, they know how to help nervous buyers make smart decisions, and they know how to create a plan that's going to give you more options. I've seen it happen a million times. People try to do it on their own versus doing it with a great team. That's why I always say that the right realtor, most of the time, it can be just as important, if not more important, than finding the right house. Because a great realtor is going to help you find the right house. A bad realtor is going to help you buy the wrong one. So congratulations on learning the new terms today. Now go do this in the right order. Listen to the rent replacement strategy and the last lease ever. Episodes 440 and 441, and then start at episode 400 and listen to the 10 steps. Gang, I've been doing this 7 years. Yeah, there's new stuff that comes up and I talk to you about it. But if I already haven't put out how to buy a home, and that's the name of my damn podcast, I should be canceled. So don't expect the next episode to be the secret sauce. I've already done it. You got this, man. Get yourself out of the market brain freeze so you're not the person with time machine regret. Be the person who used this opportunity window to build your plan, your own best personal custom plan with the Unicorn team, and helped to make this be your last lease ever. 72% of you are so close, and you don't even know it. You can do this.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuyaHome.com to get started.